Okay. Here you go. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Sugar Blues. So, JD and I were talking about what topic we wanted to cover this month. And I love, love, love talking about sugar because it affects so many different systems and organs in our body, and it can keep us really stuck in our weight loss goals and our energy goals and all of that. So, we're going to cover a lot of different things tonight because sugar affects so many things. But please feel free put something in the chat if you have a question or if you want to unmute and ask a question. Please feel free. So over the last year with COVID, I've heard, and you guys have probably all heard, people talking about how much alcohol they've drank, wine in particular. Um, but just carbs and the kitchen's right there, and it's just really easy to boredom eat, stress eat, emotional eat, and carbs and sugar are comforting, right? So there's been a lot of that this year, and a lot of people are saying, I'm giving up the sugar and I'm still tired, or I'm not losing any weight, or I'm still gaining weight, or whatever. I'm not sleeping well. And so we're going to talk about ways to address that. But I also want to give some information on why that happens and how that happens so that you understand, because I'm a why person. I like to know why so that I'm less motivated to do it the next time. So some of our talking points are going to be the many effects that sugar has on the body, insulin resistance, and weight gain, where sugar hides, so that you can be a little more informed and know where to look for added sugar and all the different names that sugar has. And then we're going to talk about sweet alternatives, because my goal is to make people feel like they're not living in a bubble. If you can find substitutes that are really yummy, but they're not full of high fructose corn syrup and just crap sugar, awesome, right? All right. So here are some of the negative effects, the main negative effects of sugar. So it affects your digestion, and we'll get into each one of these, but insulin, which is kind of the obvious one. Everybody knows that, diabetics have insulin issues. We're going to talk about food combining and what that means and how you can use that to your advantage instead of having it kind of kill your stomach. So hangriness, that's a blood sugar issue, right? Insomnia, energy, stress handling, constipation, and diarrhea. So I want to first get into kind of breaking down carbs versus sugar. Everybody thinks, well, I don't eat sugar, but I love bread. It all breaks down into glucose. It all of it. So even if you eat sandwiches but not desserts, of course that's good that you don't just binge on desserts, but it all breaks down into glucose and gets dumped into your bloodstream, especially if you're stressed. So it spikes your insulin, which tells your body to store that sugar as fat. And a lot of the time when people don't, and JD's going to talk about this, so I won't talk about this much, but when you exercise, your body can use that, but when you don't, it just gets stored as fat. So it spikes your cortisol. That to me is really interesting, because everybody knows it spikes your insulin and they just think, oh, I'll go work out and burn it off. But it spikes your insulin, and that makes it so that you can't handle stress as well. Cortisol is your stress hormone. But if you're constantly eating sugar and carbs and you're always stressed and you're always exercising and you're not sleeping enough, you're going to have way too much cortisol pumping through you all the time. And your adrenal glands get depleted, and then you get tired and you don't handle stress and you don't sleep as well. So cortisol also spikes that belly fat growth. So it slows down your metabolism. So your thyroid makes T3 and T4. Those are your thyroid hormones. T3 is a positive thyroid hormone that helps regulate your metabolism. But when you eat sugar a lot and it stresses out your body, it creates reverse T3. And reverse T3 is kind of a self-preservation mechanism to slow your body down. And that's the opposite of what you want. You're working out like crazy, or you're, stressed out or whatever, and you're like, I don't understand, I'm working out. If you're eating sugar, it slows down your metabolism because it creates reverse T3. So that's why when people stop eating sugar, they don't necessarily lose weight right away, because it depends on how much reverse T3 they have running through their body, slowing them down, even if they're eating less or eating less sugar or carbs. The other thing that sugar does is it creates an enzyme, a bad enzyme called aromatase. So aromatase is an enzyme that converts cortisol. Oh, there we go. Converts cortisol into estrogen. And I don't know if you guys know this, but you don't want more and more and more estrogen. Most people, including men, have enough estrogen in their body. So if you're always stressed and then you eat sugar, you're just making more aromatase and more cortisol and therefore more estrogen. And it causes man boobs and it causes that weight gain in your midsection where your body's just like, sorry, you've overloaded me. My liver's got too much to do and it can't get rid of all that excess aromatase and estrogen and cortisol. A really big one, something that I see a lot is inflammation in the joints, in the fingers, in the knees, the hips, the back, all of that. Sugar alkalizes your body. So everybody thinks of alkaline as a good buzzword, but being too alkaline is actually really bad for you. Really bad for you because acidity, to an extent, helps keep things in check. So if you're way too alkaline or if you're way too acidic, you're going to have inflammation because things aren't in balance. You need homeostasis to feel good, to not have that inflammation, to have the proper enzyme balance and pH balance and all of that. A lot of people think that uric acid or gout is caused by alcohol, red meat. I can't think of the other one that's pretty common, but I had a guy once that gave up sugar and added in some things that helped pH balance him, and he got rid of his gout in like a day. Like the pain was gone in one day. So sugar is huge when it comes to inflammation and joint pain and all of that. And a byproduct of yeast, everybody has a little bit of yeast in their body. Feeding on sugar, the byproduct is uric acid. So that's why when you cut out the sugar, even if it's hard, if you're like, I'm going to do it, it pulls out the yeast's reserve, the food source, right? So, it might not be pleasant. You might get headaches and whatever, but eventually in a couple of days, you will feel so much better because there's no longer that uric acid being produced. And some of you that have been with us before, I've talked about my digestive tea, apple cider vinegar, raw honey. Those things help lower cortisol, lower aromatase, and pH balance your body. So you cut out the food source for the yeast, no more uric acid, and then you add in the things that help restore balance, right? So I mentioned cortisol, a couple bullet points up. If your cortisol is constantly being spiked by stress and sugar intake and glucose or carb intake, I call it the cortisol roller coaster. It's going like this, like it just spikes whenever because you're feeding it or you're stressed and you're drinking coffee, like all of those things spike cortisol. And so you get on this roller coaster and after a while it's just going on its own. And so some people wake up 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's their cortisol spiking because their body's just so used to it, constantly spiking that it spikes at the wrong time. And then you wake up and you're like, why am I awake? And you're wide awake. So that's something that can be helped by cutting out sugar. But again, you have to restore that blood sugar balance, which we'll talk about in a minute. Causes blood acidity. That's really that's not good. That causes the inflammation in the body too. It alkalizes your stomach. So I mentioned food combining a slide back. Food combining is when you intentionally either do or don't eat certain foods together. So I always tell people, don't eat carbs and don't eat sugar with your meat, because if you do, the carbs and the sugar are going to alkalize your stomach, and your stomach needs to be acidic in order for you to digest meat, especially those A, B, and AB blood types that don't make a lot of stomach acid. They need to set their stomach up really well so that it can digest meat. So if you don't, and you throw sugar or carbs in there, you probably get really gassy, really bloated. It can cause constipation or diarrhea, depending on different variables. But you don't want an alkaline stomach. Again, everybody thinks alkaline is good, not in the stomach. The stomach should be 0.8 acidity, which is really acidic. So the other thing that I'll just quickly mention is water, pH, alkaline water. Alkaline water is horrible for your stomach because it's 9.5, and it just raises that acidity so high that your stomach's like, I cannot digest what you've just given me because you just diluted all the acid that I needed to break all the food down. And then one last thing, and I have experienced this. If anybody's ever had gastritis, it is horribly painful. And I gave myself gastritis once by eating too much sugar. I went on vacation and I was having chocolate ice cream and chocolate chips and chocolate cookies and just excessive amounts of sugar. And by about day 3 or 4, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a problem. And I remember on the drive home, I was like, I can't wait to get home. And I drank aloe vera like 4 times a day. And within like 2 days, it was settled down. But it was so painful. I couldn't bend down without like my back, like the right along my spine. It was so inflamed, and I could feel my stomach lining really inflamed too. So if anybody has that, sugar is a big instigator, big culprit for gastritis. So you can get rid of it by cutting out really processed sugars, and but then adding in some aloe vera juice to heal the stomach. So you've got sweet sugars that break down, or I should say sweet desserts that break down into glucose, but then you've also got your bread and your pasta and your rice and your quinoa. I mean, anything that's a carb breaks down into glucose. So the American, Heart Association, Cancer Association, one of those, said that people eat on average 22 teaspoons of added sugar every day. 22 teaspoons. And I'm going to show you a slide in a second that's going to show you how that happens, because a lot of people go, well, I don't eat that much sugar. And then we break it down and they're like, oh my gosh, I really do eat way more sugar than I realized. So what I typically tell people to do is fill out food diaries. Even though they're a pain in the butt, they're tedious, it takes time and effort. It helps you go, oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't realize how much sugar I ate. So let's look. There we go. So I'm going to give you a quick list, and then I'm going to give you a visual on the next slide. So a lot of the sugar that people take in is through drinks, right? So you've got soda, wine, sparkling cider during the holidays or special occasions, alcohol. Wine and tequila are kind of the biggest offenders when it comes to that. But anything sweet that you add to it, right? Blue curacao, and I don't know what else because I'm not a big alcohol person, but there's a lot of sweeteners like pineapple juice you can add to it, cranberry juice. A lot of those have added sugar. So coffee in and of itself doesn't have sugar, but all the crap we add to it does, right? And then you've got all the artificial sweeteners. So even though people, we're told that they don't affect blood sugar, they absolutely do. Your tongue has taste buds that recognize sweet, and it triggers the brain, release insulin. My dad is probably 350, 400 pounds, and all he drinks is diet soda. And his liver's all messed up, his horrible diabetes. I mean, you guys probably know some of this, right? Aspartame is horrible. But then you've also got sucralose, which is Splenda. And I hate that they put sucralose on there because they're like, well, people don't know that that's Splenda. It's Splenda. And Splenda not only is an artificial sweetener, but it has chlorine in it. It's on their website. You have to dig a little deep, but on their website it says, we take out 3 sugar molecules and add in 3 chlorine molecules to make it bypass the gut. But I've had clients that use a lot of Splenda and their intestines are on fire. They're just inflamed from that chlorine. And then acesulfame potassium. So people see potassium and think it's a mineral. It's not. It's an artificial sweetener that is equally as bad as aspartame. It causes nerve damage, brain cell damage, blood sugar, pancreas issues, and liver issues. So bad stuff. So we'll talk about some alternatives in a minute. Okay. I love this visual. So let's see. You've got Arizona iced tea, third from the left. That has 48.9 grams of sugar. So 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon. So if you do the math, that's 12 teaspoons of sugar in a can of Arizona iced tea. That's a lot. You think you're just drinking tea. I mean, it's sweet, but we just don't really think about it. And a lot of people don't know that conversion. So maybe write this down because it's important. 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon. So I always tell people, would you put a spoon, like 12 teaspoons of sugar in your mouth as you're drinking water? No, you wouldn't. But that's essentially what you're doing when you're drinking tea or sweet tea. Then you've got chocolate milk, and then you've got Gatorade, and then you've got some kind of apple juice. You've got orange juice. You've got soda. So soda has 10 teaspoons of sugar in it, in a much smaller can than the iced tea, right? You've got Ruby's milkshake here on the bottom, 88 grams of sugar. That's 22 teaspoons. So if you go to Ruby's and you have a burger and fries, and then you have a milkshake, that's like 150 grams of carbs and sugar. So it's really easy to get on that, craving roller coaster, that insulin and cortisol spike roller coaster, and we crash. Our energy crashes, and then we need more, and then our energy crashes, and then we need more, and it's just this vicious cycle. So, and even the Odwalla on the bottom right, it's juice, right? It's got 27 fruits or whatever it is. It's got a lot of them have veggies in them, but if you look at the ingredients, it's usually the fruits that are first. Like the first 10 ingredients are fruits. And not only is that a lot of glucose, but it's a lot of fructose, and fructose is really hard on your liver, which is your chemical filter, right? So, and if your chemical filter, if your liver's not working, you're going to crave sugar more. So again, it's just this vicious cycle that we have to get ourselves out of. So what I tell people is, if they want something sweet, because a lot of people don't like water, try kombucha, try juices that have like pineapple juice. Some of you have probably heard me say pineapple juice is digested so much differently by the body than all of these drinks listed here are, because it has an enzyme called bromelain. Bromelain is a pineapple enzyme that is so good for protein digestion and for your blood sugar. So it's counterintuitive, but it's so much better. So who doesn't love pineapple juice, right? Okay. So I mentioned alcohol just a little, and I just want to touch on it because there's a couple things that are very relatable to sugar and energy and all of that. So alcohol first, meaning if you eat and you're also drinking, your body's going to it's going to use the alcohol first as energy, and it's going to store everything else as fat. And that's why they call it a beer belly. It's not the beer directly that's causing the beer belly. It's the fact that you're giving your body a carb that it prefers, and so it just takes everything else and stores it. It inhibits liver detoxification. So if you have nausea, constipation, migraines, all of that, be nice to your liver. But I want to jump down to B vitamins. So when you drink alcohol, you deplete your body of B vitamins. B vitamins, especially B1, B2, and B3, are what help your body unlock the energy in food. So if you eat and you're tired afterwards, it's because you don't have enough B vitamins. So if you drink less alcohol and add in a good source of B vitamins, whatever that is for you, it could be nutritional yeast. Those of you that have never heard me say nutritional yeast, write that down. It's great for you. A nutritional yeast has all the B vitamins, including B12, which is mostly only in animal protein. So if you're B vitamin deficient, you often crave sugar. You add that B vitamin in and cravings go away. It's amazing. And your energy goes up. And then you don't need sugar as a quick acting energy source. So that's that on energy. So like I said, a lot of people's sleep is affected by energy. So it's kind of like an interconnected thing, right? If you're eating a lot of sugar, it probably has a lot of crap in it too. And then it affects your liver, and then it affects your melatonin. And then your cortisol spikes during the middle of the night. And the inflammation and mineral deficiencies caused by sugar cause restlessness and a restless leg. And then you don't sleep as well. And then you wake up tired. And then your stomach probably feels off. And then your body's like, I can't handle heavy, complex foods. Just give me sugar. Just give me a bagel. Just give me a pancake or an English muffin or a cup of coffee. And it just continues this vicious cycle of being tired, not sleeping well, having low energy, having stomach issues, and sleep is huge. We spend 8 hours a day, at least we should, sleeping. There's a reason for that, right? Our body wants to heal. So I feel like cutting out sugar is like the the weak link, the what am I trying to say? If you remove that, it kind of helps the interconnected positive cycle that your body needs to start working again. So sleep cannot be overstated. Okay. So we talked about places that it can be hiding, and let me back up just for a second. So something that people don't realize, we talked about, aspartame and sucralose and all of that, but there's so many names for sugar. There's cane syrup, there's raw sugar, there's turbinado sugar, there's stevia, there's monk fruit, there's erythritol, there's sorbitol, there's mannitol, there's all of these names. They even changed high fructose corn syrup, some companies do, to amino sweet. So it's really hard to know if there's added sugar just by reading the ingredient label, because if you don't know what it is, then you just don't know. But what I tell people is look at the label, and under total carbs, it'll say grams of added sugar, as close to zero as possible. And when I say that, I don't mean if you're eating, 6 cookies a day, it may not be realistic to just go cold turkey and just stick to veggies and protein and good carbs. But that's where this comes in. I don't want you to think that you just have to live in this bubble where you can't eat any sugar ever. So I used to hate sweet potatoes. They are such a sweet treat for me now. I love them with butter and pink salt, and I like them spicy. I put cayenne powder on them. And it's just kind of a nice balance of like sweet and salty and spicy. So if that sounds good to you, write that down. Raw honey. So a lot of people use honey like as a good alternative, but it needs to be raw. The enzymes in raw honey are there because there's no heat applied. There's no pasteurization. And a lot of people think pasteurization is good, that it protects us from bacteria. And what I tell people is there's bacteria everywhere. What you need to focus on is making sure that your stomach is acidic and strong and has all the enzymes it needs to just kill off anything that you might take in that's like lettuce. Lettuce has, potentially good, decent amounts of bacteria. So raw honey, it has enzymes in it that are so good for restoring pancreas function. So it's counterintuitive, right? Eat sugar to make your pancreas happy, but it's raw honey. Raw honey is so good for restoring the beta cell function. And the beta cells are where insulin is made. So eat raw honey. A lot of people that crave sugar, I'm like, have 3 teaspoons spoonfuls of honey every day. Once in the morning, once after lunch, once at night. And they'll go, really? Like, won't that make me gain weight or tired? Or no, it helps stop all of the other cravings. And then that way it's not such an uphill battle. They're not eating all of this junk all of the time. The same thing with the smoothie that I recommend, people do. One of my clients today said, my smoothie's not sweet enough. She has a really big sweet tooth. And I said, add some raw honey, add it to your coffee. And she actually liked it in her coffee. You can do coconut creamer and then add a little raw honey to make it taste good, but not have it be so chemically. If you look at the labels on, creamers and all of these things, it's just a chemical mess. It's just a lot of stuff. And so, if you're having insomnia or energy issues or constipation issues or nausea or bloating or gas, or there's a myriad of issues that you can have from, not taking in clean foods. Raw honey to me is a really easy, tasty way to not feel like you're living in a bubble. So pineapple is probably my favorite when it comes to a fruit that I would go to when I'm craving sugar. I don't know. It feels the most like a treat to me. So what I tell people is you don't want to do the high fructose fruits, watermelon, mango, dried fruits. Those are really hard on the liver. And usually people that have blood sugar issues, especially in this last year with all the alcohol intake and all the junk that people have been eating, it's not just their blood sugar that's out of whack, it's also their liver. So you want to take it easy on fructose. So berries, apples, pineapple, grapes are okay. People like those too because they've got that sweetness and crunch and stuff. But berries, apples, and pineapple are the best for like digestion and reducing inflammation and all of that. So I put fats on here because a lot of people, when they fats and protein, when people crave sugar, oftentimes they're not eating enough fat and protein. And so preemptively, if you're like, okay, I'm craving sugar, I'm going to eat half an avocado and then see how I feel, then a lot of the time people find that they're not craving the sugar after that. So the other thing is water. A lot of people are so dehydrated and they're like, yeah, I know I need water, but I don't want to. I'm not thirsty. I don't want it. So preemptively going, okay, I want sugar, but what do I really need? What have I not had today? And so what I do is I tell people, eat protein and veggies at breakfast, eat protein and veggies at lunch, eat protein and veggies at dinner. And then if you want something additional, then go for an RX bar. If you've never had those, try them. The dark chocolate and sea salt and the coconut chocolate are my favorite. And good fats. Thanks, Karan. Good fats are avocado, nuts, salmon, any kind of fish, really, halibut, cod. What else? I like hummus. Hummus to me is so filling and so satisfying, and it's tasty. It's thick. It's kind of got like a very satiating, satisfying quality to it. Better Cookies, if you've never heard of those, the brand is Aaron Baker's Better Cookies. You can buy them at Sprouts, you can buy them at Costco, you can buy them on Amazon, you can buy them on their website, aaronbakers.com. And what I like about these is they have cashew butter, they have almond flour, they have cassava flour. So they're grain-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, all of that. But they've got cocoa powder in them, they've got dates. So they're naturally sweetened and I think they're so good. I recommend them to a lot of people and they really like them. They're not huge. They're like they're kind of a mix between a cookie and a brownie bite. And they're chocolate. They're so good. And you can eat like 2 and move on with your day because it's really satisfying. So I'm trying to think, and feel free, guys, if you're like, is this good? Is this good? If you have a question about something, you're wondering if it's a good sweet alternative, please, please, please feel free. I love my smoothie. I don't know if you guys like smoothies, but my smoothie it's got a sweetness to it. I don't put any fruit in mine, but I use raw cow's milk and I use this chocolate protein powder that's made by a company called Plant Fusion, and it's chocolate. So I've got this chocolatey kind of shake, but I put beet leaves in there and kale and almonds and what else? Pumpkin seeds. And it's just really yummy. It's got a sweetness to it, but there's no sugar. And so it's just really, really, for me, it's very satisfying. Sometimes I'll have one after dinner if I've just had a stressful day and for some reason I'm like, I just want something. I'll have a shake after dinner. So the other thing is a lot of people demonize beets, squash, potatoes, all of those things that are a little more starchy. And what I tell people is look at processed food before you look at whole food. Don't say, well, I'm not going to eat potatoes because they're starchy. Cut out or minimize at least pancakes and bagels and waffles and cereal and soda and all of that stuff. Beets and sweet potatoes in particular are so good for you. Beets are really good for your liver, and that just makes everything happier. And then sweet potatoes are really good for your skin, your eyes, your immune system. So food that comes out of the ground, as long as it doesn't bother you, doesn't cause any stuff. Like red potatoes I can't eat, but I can eat sweet potatoes. So as long as you feel fine when you eat it, don't go, oh, well, it's starchy, so I'm not going to eat it. You should pick that over, a bread, or especially the bread that we have here in the United States. I have a client that brings me bread from this bakery in Upland, and it's like ancient grains and they ferment it and they make it the way bread used to be made. and it's sourdough and I can eat it. It doesn't make my intestines burn the way store bought bread does. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about like sugars and carbs and all of that. Like make it the best quality you can. And let me see, somebody's. Oh, so my smoothie recipe. So somebody asked what my smoothie recipe is. So if you want to write it down, here we go. Um, uh, so like I said, I do raw cow's milk. Usually O blood types don't do well with raw cow's milk, and A blood types, they tend to like almond milk. So you can do Califia almond milk or raw cow's milk or water. Some people just prefer water. That's fine too. I don't recommend coconut milk. Oat milk, fine. Hemp milk, fine, but not coconut milk for most people. Um, so then ice to taste to make it nice and cold and thicker. I put a quarter to a half an avocado, kind of depends on your liver function status. If your liver's not as functional, do a little less, like do a quarter of an avocado. That helps make it a little thicker too, which I like. And then a scoop of plant fusion protein powder. So they have vanilla chai, they have regular vanilla, they have chocolate, and they have plain, which I don't recommend. I think it's gross. Um, but I like the chocolate. And then some people add fruit. Some people like bananas, makes it thicker, makes it sweeter. The browner, the browner, the riper, excuse me, the browner the banana, the more sugar it has. So try not to let them get super brown. Excuse me. I put hemp hearts in my smoothie. You can buy those. Oh my gosh. I guess that's my cue. I need to let JD talk. And then the last thing I put in there is nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast has all the B vitamins, helps with cravings, helps with gastritis, helps with energy and sleep and all of that. Wow. Okay. All right. So my final thoughts, and then JD's going to talk to us about exercise and how that benefits weight and all of that. I just want to say one thing about insulin resistance, because I kind of mentioned it in the beginning. Insulin resistance, it's estimated that about 70% of the US is insulin resistant and doesn't know it. So if you feel like you cut out carbs and you cut out sugar and you're still tired and you're not losing weight, there's a very good chance that you're insulin resistant just from years and years and years and years of wine, carbs, and sugar intake. So give your body time and do the things that you need to do. Raw honey, lots of water, lots of veggies, lots of protein, lots of good fats, and B vitamins from nutritional yeast, bananas, asparagus, beans, meat. So there's all kinds of things that have B vitamins. I said nutritional yeast in the smoothie. And chromium. And that does not mean go to the store and buy chromium picolinate, because chromium picolinate is the mineral that regulates the pancreas, the beta cell function. But chromium picolinate has a negatively charged ion, which means your cells repel it. Your pancreas doesn't like it. So get it from food as much as possible, or get it from a whole food supplement. So chromium foods are green beans, romaine lettuce, onions, tomatoes, buckwheat, and honey, raw honey. So there's not a lot of chromium foods, and then there's a lot of sugar, so that's why there's usually an imbalance. So get those foods in as much as you can. And then of course you have to, put in more deposits than withdrawals, right? If you're eating a lot of sugar and only eating green beans once a week, you're not going to see a difference. But if you take a couple spoonfuls of honey every day, amazing. If you eat a salad with romaine every other day and green beans, and broccoli. Broccoli has chromium too. So I have a standard process supplement that I like. It's called Diaplex, and it's for people with any kind of blood sugar imbalance, diabetics or not. Any blood sugar imbalance, hangriness, that's your blood sugar dipping because it can't pull glycogen from your muscles because your body's all out of whack. It's all out of balance. It's not functioning the way it's supposed to. So when it comes to sugar cravings and not giving into those things, you have to plan ahead. You have to, because if your body's used to craving sugar, if it's in that cycle of, okay, every day at 3 o'clock, I need something sweet, or I need my coffee with my sugar, it's going to take a little while to break that cycle. So you've got to, you have to plan ahead and make sure you have things on hand. So a lot of people will bring RX bars. When I'm going like out dancing and I know I'm going to be out late and I know I'm going to get hungry, I'll bring my Better cookies with me and I'll just eat a couple on the way home so that I'm not starving when I get home and I'm not eating late and eating, bad things or whatever. So plan ahead. You can't get rid of all of your stress. So what that means is when we're stressed, we stress eat, right? So you can't get rid of it all, but you can improve it. You can improve your body's ability to handle stress by not eating crap sugar, right? Analyze those food labels. Don't buy stuff that has high fructose corn syrup in it. It is horrible for you. It's not stated enough how horrible high fructose corn syrup and any kind of processed sugar are for you. They're horrible. So find things. Sprouts and Trader Joe's have a whole section of healthier options. So even if you're like, well, this has cane sugar, but it's better than high fructose corn syrup. Absolutely. It's a journey, right? Don't expect that you're going to be eating like me tomorrow. It took me 10 plus years to get to where I'm at. So that doesn't mean make excuses or give yourself, excuses to eat crap. But at the same time, don't, if you taste something and you're like, that's disgusting, I'm not eating that, that's fine. Work your way down, wean off, make little adjustments here and there, and don't quit before the miracle. So many people, look back 6 months and go, oh my gosh, I never thought I would be here. And here I am. So, Bill had a question. Let's see. So you mentioned an AB blood type diet. Is there some place to get a guideline? Yes. So there's a book, Bill, called Eat Right for Your Type. And it's by Peter D'Adamo. And that's D''ADAMO. There you go. Oh, thanks, JD. JD put it in the chat. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen. Eat Right for Your Type by Dr. D'Adamo. So it has all the different blood types. And there's also an app that I think is really cool, because if you live with someone else and they have a different blood type, it can be a little tricky. They have an app where you can put in both blood types and they'll tell you which foods are good for both of you. So that's kind of yeah, love it, Jamie. Awesome. Yeah, the app is awesome. It has a shopping list and it tells you about how it affects your cortisol levels and all of that stuff, stress handling. Okay. I think it is time for JD to share with us some wisdom about exercise and how that can help blood sugar and weight loss and all of that. So take it away, JD. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, so we were just, you were just talking about insulin resistance, right? And, of course, diet is going to be one of the biggest keys to changing that, right? And it does take time. So plan ahead, look for the long haul, do all those things. And because it doesn't take one day to get to where we were, your body just doesn't all of a sudden say, all right, insulin is now, I kind of call it like, hey, your money's not good here anymore with our cells, with our muscles, right? And it doesn't happen in one day. It takes time for that to happen. So it's going to take time to bring us back. But one of the things that you can add in is exercise, because if your body is never getting a stimulus, if you're sitting down, right? Like, what do most people do? They sit down to drive to work. They get to work, they sit down, they sit for lunch, they drive home sitting, and then they relax by sitting down and watching TV or sitting on the computer. So if we're not active, if you don't have an active job where you're using your body, where you're on your feet and pushing, pulling, lifting, and then we're never giving that body a stimulus of, hey, use me, right? Use this food that I just ate, right? Because it's going to break down into sugar and your body wants to use sugar for activity. So if we're never giving that stimulus, where is your body going to put all that sugar? It's going to have to put it somewhere, right? It's going to put it in belly fat and body fat and wherever fat goes on your body, but it goes into your fat cells. And when insulin is high, it's telling, where blood sugar is high, insulin follows. And what is insulin going to say? Hey, we need to put this blood sugar somewhere. So it's like a little chain, right? Blood sugar goes up from when we eat, insulin goes up, and then the insulin is saying, hey, let's push this blood sugar, let's put it somewhere, right? And if you're not stimulating your body, doing something, moving, pushing, pulling, working out, going for a jog, lifting some weights, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's going to go into the fat cells. So it can make a choice. Is it going to go into the muscle cells? Is it going to go into the cardiac? Is it going to be used? Is it going to be burned off, right? Or is it going to be stored as fat? So an immediate way of helping your body out with that insulin kind of climbing up is by using your body. So I always say to people, most people think like, okay, well, I want to lose weight. I want to lower my insulin. I need to do cardio. But let's just break down what cardio is. People don't say cardiovascular training, but cardiovascular is heart and lungs and blood system, right? It's just the blood pumping through. It's not your muscular system. So when I jog or I walk or I ride a bike, especially as I get better at it, as I get more conditioned to use the efficiency of my body, my mechanics of my body, it turns into less and less muscles and more heart and lungs, just the blood flowing through the body. And I don't really get that muscular stimulus. So if you really want to change what, again, if you want the blood sugar to be the tickets, the money to be paid in good kind to your muscle cells, to your body to actually lower the blood sugar, to lower the insulin over time, we've got to use the muscles, all right? So it's taking things through a fuller range of motion. Just think about when you're walking, right? You're not bending your knees and squatting down. You're not pushing up and down. It's just your feet, your legs, all right? They're moving, but after a while, it's just the same thing over and over again. So going through more ranges of motion, doing a lunge, doing a squat, doing a push-up, doing a pull, right? A pull down, a pull up, but doing those basic movements. I always talk about it, push, pull, right? Legs, core, and then conditioning. And you can do the conditioning with your cardio. I'm not saying don't do it. It's a vital part of your overall health. But in regards to attacking that insulin and attacking that blood sugar issue, I would combine the two. Like for most people, I do, like Carrie will tell you today, I'm going to work you in a circuit style. It's going to be maybe a push, maybe a pull, maybe a leg, maybe a core, some sort of combination. And then we're going to repeat, right? Do that 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Boom. Then we switch it up, then do something different. So you can get all those aspects in one session to get the most bang for your buck. But with the blood sugar and the insulin, your body over time just says, we've got too much of this. We don't have anywhere to put it. So if we don't use it, we lose it, right? That old saying. But I want you to think, if you don't use it, you store it, right? And it's an efficient system. If you think about when we didn't have refrigerators, when we didn't have preservatives, when we didn't have deep freeze, we didn't have these methods of storing stuff. You have a storage unit on your, so body fat, we look at it, demonize it, but it's Mother Nature's beautiful way of saying, hey, I have too much right now, but I might need it for the wintertime, or I might need it for this long trek across the Sahara Desert when there is no food. So I store it on myself. Now we look at it and we go, ooh, I don't want to store it on myself, right? But it's nature's way. So how do we combat nature? We use some of these things that Carrie was talking about, right? Raw honey, raw, nature's way. It's got everything that we need there already if we don't overdo it, right? And again, you could eat all the foods that Carrie was talking about, right, in excess and come up with the same problems. So moderation is key. Writing things down to get a hold of that is going to be a big, balance to what you're going to do over time. And again, it's, Rome wasn't built in a day. One step at a time. Don't think that you have to hit home runs. I tell my clients all the time, we just want to get on base. Just hit that first base, get hit by a pitch, get a walk, whatever it is that you need to do to get there. And then we're going to chain things together. So along with the diet, and it might be overwhelming, but adding in some of that exercise, and it doesn't have to be a lot, right? Even just, a couple squats here or there, right? One time a week session, right? Just getting in the pattern of doing things is crucial because of just our lifestyles in general, right? We sit a lot. We use a seated position for almost all of our entertainment now, whereas we used to go out and I mean, even now, right? Going out is kind of a thing of the past. So this just 1 year, things can change. So that's my spiel on moving your body, but just something to think about. We talk about the sugar high, and you talk about those feel good, those homey foods, the carbs, they make you feel good, right? Well, sugar hits the same sort of receptors on your brain that cocaine and all of these drugs do. So it makes you feel good, right? That's why chocolate is addicting. That's why sugar is addicting. So when we take those things away, right, you might not feel as good. Go for a walk, go for a jog, do a workout. They're going to be tough. So it doesn't mean go do it for an hour and a half. Do it for 10, 15, 20 minutes, start off with. But the immediate thing that you can get from working out is just like the sugar high. Runners talk about all the time, the runner's high. What is it? When I'm pushing myself, when my muscles are burning, my body doesn't like that. So it has, again, nature has a beautiful system, and it says, I'm going to pump you full of hormones that make you feel good, right? Because you're not going to be able to handle running away from a lion because it doesn't know that you're on a jog, right? It thinks you're running for your life, all right? Or it thinks that you're like, all right, we've got to get to this town because there's a war going on. It's like, let's go, baby. So with that being said, your body says, okay, we're in pain. We have hormones that can combat that. Get high on your own supply, as Wim Hof talks about, all right? So there's ways that you can use your own hormones to feel good. And when we do, what happens? You stop running, but then you feel amazing, right? So you move, you work out, you do something, and you get those hormones and pumping through your body, all the endorphins get pumping, you feel good, but they stay around. So you feel even better once that stimulus of muscle burning is gone. So get into that workout, even for 20 minutes, and you're going to feel good, and that's going to last. One of the things I was telling Carrie is when I was young and before I got into training, I was a senior in high school, and I would go to the gym with all my friends and hang out. And I'm sitting there watching people come into the gym and watching people come out of the gym. And I would notice after a while, I'm like, everyone who's coming into the gym has a certain look on their face, not the most smiley, not saying hi, not giving people high fives, just glum. But everyone leaving is like, bye, bye, hi, like just happy, right? And it was like, I did it for an hour. Every set, a moment, I would look at people walking in, walking out, walking in, walking out. I'm like, this is fascinating. Then I learned about the science of endorphins and all these things. And you always hear about that, but it's interesting to think that even in one session, you can feel good. Now spin all those together, right? If we're doing the opposite, what's happening to your body? We're not working out, right? We're not feeling good. And then what do you want to do to make yourself feel good? Maybe I should eat some sugar. Maybe I should have that soda or have that candy or have that chocolate. So the opposite effect happens. The same way that the insulin over time, it spikes, it comes down. It spikes, it comes down, but it does this over time. And once you get to here, when it's here all the time, out of the screen all the time, it makes it so much harder for it to come down. You might hit a point of type 2 diabetes, which is your body just can't process it. You're insulin resistant. It says, I can't do it anymore. So by doing the diet, by slowly working your way back down, adding the exercise, it's like, whoa, we can really slide that sucker back down in the right direction. So you have a chance, right? You don't use it, you lose it. You don't use it, you store it, right? But you also work the opposite direction in the bad way or work in the right way. So it's a thing for you to think about. Again, it doesn't take a massive amount. You don't have to become a CrossFit champion, weightlifting champion. You don't have to join 10 sports leagues to get your exercise in. It can start small. The diet is going to be the biggest thing, but move that body, take it through ranges of motion. If you have pain during certain ranges of motion, find options that you can do, go to your limit, even doing an isometric where you're just holding yourself up against a wall in your range. You're going to be able to get that stimulus that your body is missing, from sitting down all the time. So that's what I would recommend in conjunction with it. Again, the diet is for me, even though I'm someone who is a worker outer and I'm a trainer, I still think that diet is superior because you are what you eat. So that's going to be number one. Number two, if you want to feel better, especially while you're making these different goals, go out for a walk, go out for a jog, do something physical, take your body through some ranges of motion, and you're going to see the results just rapidly, snowball. And that's going to make you feel better because it's a positive feedback loop. I feel better. I look better. I want to do these things again. So we were talking before, about, hey, sometimes it's like, man, I can't eat what I want. I can't do this. There's light at the end of the tunnel, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Have that outlook of long term. The little wins over time are going to stack, and that's going to motivate you over and over and over again. But if we just do it for a week and then we cut it off and we say, to hell with this, right? Then all that week, that effort that we did, those stacked days, they just get tumbled over. So, give it 3-4 weeks, get in there, see some results, let that motivate you, and then boom, do it again. Doesn't mean that you can never have sugar again. Doesn't mean that you can't have wine again. Doesn't mean that you can't do these things again. But let's peel things together, put them together, get the results, little cheat, then we go right back to it. Little cheat, go right back to it. And then we're working our way into the right direction. So
I love it. So JD, Karan has a question. She said, I'm at work 9 to 10 hours a day with a 30 to 45-minute lunch break and a 45-minute drive each way 5 days a week. At what point should I exercise, and what is the best types of exercise that I can do in that short period of time?
So, obviously it's going to depend on your level, right? If you can't do a squat and because of your knees or your back, it's going to be tough for you to do a high intensity interval training where you're doing box jumps and burpees and push-ups and plyo push-ups and pull-ups and dip and all these different types of things. So if your level is, hey, I feel good, my body doesn't have anything wrong, go with a high intensity exercise routine 2, 3, 4 times a week where you're doing it for a short period of time. You can be 15, 20, 25 minutes, but it's got to be intense, right? So that's at the high spectrum. My body feels good. I'm able to do it. On the low spectrum, it's like, hey, if I'm at work 9 to 10 hours a day, 45, if I'm sitting for 12 hours a day and then I come home and I'm exhausted because it's just life, right? And work is exhausting. Then what can you do that's going to be different than sitting? Is it walking, right? Is it stretching? Is it doing some form of resistance training? Maybe that's working with bands. Maybe that's working with some dumbbells or at a gym working on some machines. But I would say 3 times a week working with your muscles and 3 times a week working out with the cardio is ideal. So even if that's, all right, I'm going to take an hour, right, and just parse it up. 10 minutes a day, I'm going to go for a walk. Then 10 minutes a day, I'm going to do some weightlifting or some squats or some whatever, right? 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Doesn't mean you have to start with 6 days a week. It can be, I'm going to start with one day and I'm just going to walk for 10 minutes. Then the next week, I might add in 2 days of walking. Then it's 3 days, right? And it's just over time, I can add in. So throughout the week, right, I'm getting that 100 minutes or 150 minutes or whatever it might be. Another way to think about it, if you're working all day and you don't have the time or you don't have the ability or it's just too hard to carve out the time, EHOH. What does that mean? EHOH. Every hour on the hour. So every hour on the hour, so you look at the clock, it's about to be 8 p.m. All right. But let's just say you're going to start, you get to work and it's 9 a.m. Right. You start from 9 to 5, 9 a.m. It's 9 o'clock on the hour, every hour. I'm going to do 5 push-ups. I'm going to do 5 squats. I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm going to do. Right. Take my body through ranges of motion. I'm going to be sitting on my chair. Right. And I'm going to stand all the way up and then I'm going to sit down. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do that 10 times. And then that's it. Then the next hour, I'm going to do some pushing, right? Or I'm going to get some bands and I'm going to do some pulling. Or I'm just going to do squats all day, right? I'm just going to do those. You can do things throughout the day. Matthew McConaughey talks about a workout that he would do while he was, I forget what he was sitting down a lot. And he says he would take a sandbag or a kettlebell with him and he would just hold it, right? And so he would pick it up, hold it, right, while he's at work. And so he's reading stuff or whatever, and he's just holding it, right? Your arms are getting a workout. Then he's got to set it down here. Then he's here. Then he puts it on his shoulders, right? And then he stands up with it. And then it's just, you're throughout the day, you have resistance holding on to it. So there's creative ways of doing it when you're at work, but that every hour on the hour is a great way to not sweat, not get burnt out, and get those reps. Let's just say you wanted to do a workout, and let's just say I'm your trainer, and I said, we're going to do 5 exercises, 3 sets of 10. So 3 sets of 10 repetitions is 30, 5 exercise, 3 times 5, 150 repetitions. But if I did in a 9-hour day, I did 9 times 10, right? I got 90 repetitions. If I did 2 exercises 10 times, that's 180 repetitions. That's more than what we did in a full hour session. So you can break it up throughout the day and still get that total workload overall, less taxing on the body, less taxing on the nervous system. So there's ways of getting creative with it. But again, I would just say, where's your level? What can you do? What will you do? Do it, right? Start with 5 minutes, start with 10 minutes, and let it happen naturally. But don't just do it for a week. Don't just do it for a day. Continue it, just like the diet. We got to string things together, or else it's just here today, gone tomorrow. You don't lose it, you store it, right? So let's use it.
Love that. Love that. Oh, you just said something that I wanted to comment on. I lost it. It's been a long day. Anyway, does anybody have any other questions? Thank you for the questions that you guys have asked so far. Oh, here we go. As an O negative blood type, higher impact is my benefit. Is it beneficial for me to do this EHOH, or do I need to do something different?
Again, it depends on you, your goal, where you're at. If your goal is I want to, get into the best shape of my life by July 4th, all right, less than a month from now, then you're going to have to do some high intensity. You're going to have to do some high impact. You're going to have to do multiple days a week. But if you're looking at the long haul, right, and that's just where you're at today, let's just say your goal is longer term, or you're not in a rush to get there, or if you're saying, I'm not doing anything now, we'll start with that, right? Start with something that is lower impact, lower intensity, and build up to that, right? Set a goal of having that 2-3 workouts a week. Once you feel comfortable just moving your body, if you're sitting all the time, going from 0 to 100 is very drastic. And what happens? You get sore. You then use that as an excuse not to work out again, right? Because you're like, I'm sore, right? Or I hurt, or that was exhausting. Why would I want to do that? So if you can start at a lower intensity and stack things together, right? Oh, I got stronger than I did last time. Oh, that was easier than it was. And you just naturally progress. It's psychologically pleasing, and it's not, oh man, I have to do that same level of intensity to get this little tiny bit, because it's not like you're going to burn like 20 years of fat off of you in one session. And it might feel like you did 20 years of work in one session, right? It might hurt like that for your body for a week. All right. So slow and steady wins the race. That's what I would recommend for everyone. It doesn't matter what your goal is, right? I always say, build it up, let those little wins stack into big wins over time. It's not as satisfying as doing an 8-week program to a 6-pack abs. But little known fact, I don't know if you guys know this about a lot of those programs, is they all they do is switch before and after pictures. It's the easiest scheme in the world. So I've been training for 15 years. I have a six pack, right? I'm ripped. I know what to do with my diet. And then all I do is take a picture of that person. Then I tell that person, all right, I want you to do nothing for 8 weeks, whatever our program is. And so they can get something realistic. Then they switch the photos. They take a picture after the 8 weeks of binging or drinking alcohol or doing whatever, and they just switch them. That's what they've been doing to people all this whole time. And we think, oh my God, I can get these results in 8 weeks. It doesn't happen like that. Can it happen? Yes. The percentage, less than 1%. That's going to happen for people. Does it? Right? Sometimes. But it takes all those things, and you probably have to quit your job too. So who's going to do that?
So I just want to say one thing. JD kind of said it, but I think this is such a cool quote. I heard this somewhere. It's you cannot outrun your fork. So if you take anything away from that, it's kind of a combination of exercise and food, right? You can't outrun your fork. Meaning if you go and get a 500 calorie Starbucks drink and then go to the gym, you might burn those calories, but you're not burning the negative effect on your thyroid, the negative effect on your digestion and your intestines, the negative effect on your pancreas and your kidneys and your sleep and all of your energy, your adrenals, all of that. So I think that's, for me, it's stuck. I probably heard that 15 years ago. You cannot outrun your fork. So keep that in mind when you're making choices of what you're going to put into your mouth. Think about
Especially
that.
if your fork is in your mouth. It's going wherever you're going, babe.
Exactly. So, and I wanted to comment on Jamie's thing, and then we will wrap up because it's 8:02. Jamie, for anybody in general that wants to start working out and they're not sure how, the nutrition side, the health side of it is, if you have, say, fibromyalgia and you're tired all the time and you're inflamed all the time and you're exhausted and whatever, hardcore exercise is not for you. It's not. Your body is not ready. It's already making tons of cortisol. It's ridiculously out of balance and deficient and dysfunctional. So that you have to start with diet first. And of course, go for a walk or stretch or do yoga, do things to move, but it's not a good idea to just, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to feel great. You're not. I've done that. When I had fibromyalgia, I would go for bike rides and I would be in pain for a week after one 30-minute bike ride with my kids. So you have to take it in steps. Like, where are you? Right? If you haven't exercised at all, like JD said, take it slow. But also, if you're super stressed, if you don't sleep well, if you're in pain, if you have some kind of major disease, you have to start, let it come from the inside out. So make good food choices, drink choices, and then add in exercise accordingly. So JD's awesome at that. I actually worked out with him before we did this today. And that positive feedback loop for me is huge. I'm only doing once a week with him because I'm just so busy, but I bought weights and a yoga mat and I'm doing exercises at home now. So it really, really does help. Every little positive change you make with exercise and with your diet, it just motivates you to keep going, but you got to make the right ones, right? So make the right choices with exercise. Don't overdo it so that you're not in pain and just don't want to do it anymore. But same thing with food. Don't cut out so many things that you're miserable and you're like, this sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. And you give up. So that, to me, I mean, that's I keep saying, I don't want you to feel like you're living in a bubble. Don't give up meat because everybody else is giving up meat. If you feel good on meat, eat meat. Don't give up starchy veggies. If that's a way better alternative to bread and tortillas and all that crap, do it. Okay. So that's the takeaway. Baby steps, plan ahead, experiment, and you cannot run your fork. All right. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you, JD. I always love hearing what you have to say. And I'm going to end our recording now.